Picture this. It's March 3rd. The application season's over in Arizona, and in the next 2 weeks, they're going to be announcing the elk draw results. For me, it's payday. I open my bank account to do budgeting like I normally do, and I look and I see a charge from Arizona Game and Fish. It's for $650. I didn't get any emails yet. The draw announcement's not about to come out for 2 more weeks. But the charge is exactly what I was expecting it to be if I drew an elk tag. If you didn't know this, the credit cards get hit early. You will find out if you drew a tag before the draw results come out. That is why when you apply, they tell you to make sure that your credit card is up to date because you don't get a second chance. My credit card was good to go. That charge meant I'm going on an elk hunt this year. I had about a 5% chance of drawing this tag. I never expected to draw. And now I'm in for a hunt that I wasn't expecting to go on or prepared for at least another 3 or 4 years. And I'm asking myself the question, can I do this? Am I ready? And what do I do now? Welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Kosovic. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. I hope you enjoyed that little intro. It's kind of a teaser for what was going through my head, setting me up for this podcast episode. If this is your first time listening in, I went on my first hunt in 2018. I was 25 years old, and although I did not punch my tag on that season, I was hooked. And I have gone hunting out west every single year since then. I hope to share my failures and successes to help you along your journey and encourage you to join me on this wild pursuit. Today, we are talking about how I selected and found my hunting outfitter / guide. I'm not going to be breaking down that hunt. If you want to hear all about my Arizona elk hunt, please check out episode 6 of the podcast. I will, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will have a little info card on there. If you're listening anywhere else, I will make sure that I link it in the show notes. Before we dive into everything, I think it's important to take a step back and talk about how I actually got here with this Arizona tag now in my pocket. I started hunting in 2018, as I just said. I didn't really start applying to build points until about 2020. Even in 2020 and the years before, everything was either an over-the-counter hunt or a tag that I could draw with no points. That's how I ended up in Montana in the first place. I started off slow because, as with many people, and you can probably relate to this if you're listening, money is tight. It's expensive to apply out west to all the different states, all the different hunts, and all the different species. So I started out small and slowly would be adding hunts to my application list. I applied for Arizona the first time in 2021. One of my good buddies that was out with me in Utah is actually an Arizona resident. He and I applied together, and unfortunately, neither of us drew. But I applied in 2022 again. Now, taking another step back for a second, when you look at the drawing and applications, and I'm not going to go really into the strategies too much, but states can get sort of broadly categorized into 3 different categories. You have your short turnaround states where you can draw and hunt every 1 to 3 years. Then you've got your mid states, you're like 3 to 5, 3 to 7. And then you have your long-term states where you're waiting at least 5 years to draw a tag, if not even longer. I mean, states like Utah and some of these Arizona elk hunts, you will never draw. But in general, Arizona is considered one of those long-term states. So I applied in 2022, and I apply every year. I had 1 point. I had about a 5% chance of drawing. My hunt was a late rifle hunt. The unit that I drew, if you look at the points in Go Hunt, it takes on average about 8 to 9 points for 100% draw odds. I drew it with 1. And that is not to brag. That was all luck. Yes, I had to put in order to do it, but it's still luck. I was expecting, and my strategy was set up so that I would have, if I started applying in 2021, by the time I expected to draw the tag, be about 2028, I'd have a lot more elk hunting experience under my belt. I was expecting to have a lot more seasons under my belt than I did when I actually drew the tag. At this point, I have gone on 1 elk hunt. I went on an over-the-counter rifle hunt in 2020 in Utah, a very different hunt than what I was about to experience in Arizona. Knowing that I had probably spent just about all of my luck drawing this tag, I did not think that this was going to be an easy hunt. To make things more complicated, I already had another Western hunt planned for this year. I did not expect to draw this tag. I usually plan my seasons where I have one tag that I'm guaranteed to get. That is the hunt I plan for. I always told myself, if I ever got another one, it would just be a bonus. Well, this was my bonus. Arizona was my bonus hunt. So now I have to figure this out. I have an archery over-the-counter elk hunt in September in Utah that I'm going on with Peter. And now I have a November late rifle Arizona elk hunt. I've never had to plan two hunts before at the same time. I don't have any experience doing that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to maximize both hunts. I only get to go out with Peter once a year. This is the week, a little bit more than a week that we get to spend together. I want to maximize that hunt. But I also want to maximize this tag that I might not draw again for another 7, 8, 9, or more years because of point creep. Thinking about it, realizing the amount of time that I would have to invest in e-scouting and preparation to try and come up with success for both of these hunts, I just thought it was not going to happen, particularly with the skills that I have. I wanted to maximize this hunt. To me, that meant I really need to seriously consider using a guide. Now, before I jump in and start breaking down how I found the guide, what I was doing, what my research methods were, I want to say this. I am not sponsored by the guide that I used, the outfitter that I used. Guides are expensive. I spent $6,000 on my hunt. And that's $6,000 and there's no guarantees. Guided hunts are expensive. And any real hunt, I'm sure that there are ones on private land in some states, especially in Texas, where you can get guaranteed shot opportunities. But on public land, there are no guarantees. You could spend $6,000 and come home eating tag soup. That is a reality that you need to be prepared for before you go with a guide. With that being said, what you get from a guide, a good guide, is worth so much more than the punched tag. My guide went over so many different things with me. One of the things that I loved about the guide is he was tailored to me. He knew I was a new hunter, new to Western hunting and hunting in general, and he wanted to go out of his way to make sure that I was getting the most out of the experience. We talked all about Arizona, all about the different species, coos deer, mule deer, bighorn sheep. We talked about how you can actually call biologists and get them to give you information, not just blow you off and give you the same stuff that you can read on the Fish and Game website. The amount of stuff that I learned I think I spent 6 days with him, is worth well more than that punch tag. Not only did I learn how someone with over 20 years of experience hunting and guiding hunts elk, I got to ask him questions, get feedback, talk through and help in the planning process and see what he considered. I know that this experience has set me up so much better for the next time that I have an elk hunt. I don't know when that will be, but I know that my chances DIYing it in the future are way better now because I went with a guide. And I do think that this will pay off for other species as well. Some of the stuff that we talked about was specific to elk, but I just got so many great notes, so much good information. A good guide is worth more than the money you're spending, and it gives you more value than you are getting from just a punch tag. This is my opinion. Again, not sponsored by anyone, not being paid to do this. I just think that this is a useful thing to talk about, and I want to be completely open and honest about my experience and how I think about guides. If you've used the guide before and you're listening to this, you've gone on a Western hunt and you've gone on a guided hunt, let me know. Either send me a message on Instagram or send a comment on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, and let me know, what was your experience? Do you think that the guide was worth it? Was it worth more than just the punched tag? If you did punch your tag, what was your experience like? I'd love to hear more from you in the comments or in my messages on Instagram. If you don't follow me, I'm at EndurHunt, EndurHunt. I will make sure that is also in the show note description. All right. So I already touched on the fact that there are no guarantees. The last thing that I want to say is that a guide is not a magic solution, right? So this is in line with the no guarantees, but you have to do work too. You need to be in physical shape. You need to be ready to shoot. You have to be ready to execute. The guide can help you find the animals. You still have to do the work. So I would encourage you to go back to episode 11, which is called Mountain Fit in Texas, I believe. Check that episode out. I talk all about mental resilience, mental toughness, physical fitness, and what I do to get prepared for the hunting season. I would encourage you to check that out. With the warnings out of the way, let's jump into what I did. These are the steps that I took to find my guide and outfitter. This worked really well for me. I include one that I did not do. I'll explain why later. I think they will work just as well for you, and I would encourage you to use these steps if you decide to go with a guide. I'm going to explain later. The guide I chose is called Shadow Valley Outfitters. They're based out of Tucson, Arizona. I had an amazing experience with them and would highly encourage you, if you draw a tag anywhere in Arizona for basically any species, highly encourage you to go check them out. Everyone that I've interacted there is like an A+ person. Fantastic. More on that later. Let's jump into what my steps were. The name of the game is research. Just like getting ready for a hunt, you want to do all of the preparation. The preparation makes the success. It is the same thing with finding your guide. And I guess maybe I should take a second and just break down what the difference is between guide and outfitter. The outfitter is the organization. The guide is the person who is actually guiding you. Now, I'm assuming that most outfits have this kind of policy, but there are two options for the elk hunt with Shadow Valley Outfitters. You can go with a solely guided hunt or a fully outfitted hunt. I want to say the price difference was a little over $1,000. So $4,500 to $4,800 versus $6,000. In my opinion, when you go guided, at least in Shadow Valley, it may be different for others. You have to provide your own camp, your own food, you cook for yourself, you provide everything. When you go fully outfitted, they give you camp, they give you a place to sleep, they give you the food, they cook for you, they do everything. I'm like, if I'm already spending about $5,000, what is the extra $1,000? I'm going to have to deal with it and spend more money than I want to anyway. Might as well get the most out of it. And that's what I did. I think it was worth it. As much as I love backcountry camping and doing all of the work myself in an unfamiliar area after a significant amount of driving, and I'm already under a lot of stress, to me, it was worth the extra money. All right, there are 7 steps that I use when researching, and this is what I would encourage you to do. Step number 1 should be obvious to anyone, but just Google search. You draw a tag, say you draw elk, Arizona. Go on Google, search Arizona elk, probably search your unit, and outfitter or guide. See what shows up. Take a look at their Google reviews, see what people are saying about them, how many reviews they have. This is a great place to start. You will see a bunch of different outfitters show up on Google. The next step is to go and look at their website. Listen, I'm a millennial. I'm 31. If you don't have a website for your business that I can check out beforehand, there's about a 95% chance I am not doing business with you. I'm going to research you first, then maybe I'll contact you. Maybe. So step number 2 for me, go on Google, see who all the outfitters that show up, whoever's those first 1 to 3 pages of Google, I'll write them down. And then the next step is I start looking for websites. If you don't have a website, I immediately eliminate you. There's so many outfitter options out there, just not worth it. Start looking on the website. Things that I look for, the things that I did look for were, where's your about page? I want to see what your company is about. Do you have missions, values? Do you align with what I'm doing, or are you just a salesy type shop? I do look at the testimonials, but take those with a grain of salt. They're on their website. They're going to be the best testimonials. Google and Yelp, if you can find them, are probably going to be a more realistic sample size of what those reviews look like. But any review that you can read is worth reading, in my opinion. Other things to check out on the website. Just how professional does it look? Does the website look like it was built in the 90s and the early 2000s? Or does this look like a modern website? Do they break down all of their hunt options? Make sure that they actually cover the unit that you hunt. If you check and contact an outfitter and they only do certain units, then you are out of luck and you wasted your time by contacting them. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. I'm looking for pictures as well. If they post pictures on there or anything about their experiences, A lot of outfitters will post what their hunts are like, the types of areas they will be at. You can get a lot of information from the website. I spent a good amount of time here. In my opinion, though, looking at Google reviews, looking at them on Google, checking out their website is not enough. For me, I want more validation that the company I'm about to contact is worth it. So for me, step number 3 is review their social media accounts. Specifically, most outfitters, from my experience and research, have a Facebook page. Many of them also have Instagram pages. These are the things that I look for specifically on Instagram. I look at who follows them. If they are a legit outfitter and they are well known in the industry, they probably get followed by other hunters that you're following already on Instagram. That is a good sign. It's not perfection, but it is a good sign. Look at how often they post. Do they post on a regular basis? Do they make stories? What do they put in those stories? On their posts, if they're posting grip and grins, which they all do they tag the guide? One of the things that I like to check out is what are the quality of the guides? What kind of people do they seem like? Scrolling through, check out their guides, look at their pages, see what their posts look like. You get a real big picture look at the company, the type of people that they hire. You're building a really good knowledge base at this point with a lot more context. And you can do a lot of the same things on Facebook. I did not look at who is a member or following them. I'm not sure if it's as easy to do that on Facebook as it is on Instagram. But on Facebook, you tend to see more engagement with the users. At least that's what I saw from my research. The next step is admittedly hit or miss. Going to YouTube and seeing if they document any of their hunts or anyone documents hunts with them. I would not eliminate an outfitter because they don't have a YouTube channel. I wouldn't eliminate them either if they don't have any videos of their hunts documented. This is just a nice to have, in my opinion. It only further strengthens the argument that they have. If, as I'm going through this whole list, I am crossing off entries, we are eliminating potential outfitters that we're going to use as we're going through each step of the process. You start with a big pool when you get to the Google searches. When you go to the websites, you're eliminating a bunch. And then when you review the social media, you're eliminating even more. If they have basically no social media presence, if they are not posting anything, or they don't have an account at all, there are probably better options out there. And I would rather save my time and go for those ones and focus on them. So then YouTube will be a hard one for me to eliminate unless I see something that is overtly negative. Number 5, looking at any podcasts that they may be in. Podcasts are so prevalent. It's a great networking tool. A lot of outfitters and guides participate in podcasts now. This is a great tool. If you find an outfitter that does a bunch of podcasts, you can learn a lot about how they approach hunts, what their mindset is, where their focus is. And that is something that can be an absolutely powerful tool in your tool belt when you are determining whether or not you want to do business with a particular outfitter or a specific guide. And that's something you can keep in mind too in steps 3, even 4 and 5. If you notice that they have one particular guide that has elk hunting experience and they show up in these different places, there's no guarantees, but maybe you could request to use that guide when you do your service. Number 6 is an optional one. For me, I did not use this, but you might be able to. If you know anyone who has done guided hunts before, someone who has gone to the same state and used the outfitter or used a outfitter for the species that you're trying to hunt, you can go with referrals. I don't know anyone that has gone on an outfitted hunt before or a guided hunt before, particularly in Arizona. I'm the first person I know that's hunted in Arizona. So referrals weren't an option for me. But good referrals from someone you know who went on a similar hunt or the same hunt as you is probably worth its weight in gold. Chances are, if your buddy had a good experience, you're going to have a good experience too. A good referral for me would override not having a website, minimal presence on Google or social media. A solid referral could override a lot of things. I placed it so low on the list because this is how I did it. I didn't use referrals. All right. And then our final step, you should have a very small list at this point. I think by the time I got to step 7, I only had 3 options left on the table that I was considering. Contact them, preferably by phone, but most of them have a contact form. And I actually did use the contact form first just because I wanted to see what type of response I was going to get. I used the contact form and then got on the phone with a representative. You could get the best research possible and then talk to someone on the phone and realize that this company is not for you. You could tell if someone's being salesy or if they are someone that you would actually want to do business with. One thing I want you to keep in mind as you're going through this list, you get all the way to this point. If you get to the phone call and you talk to someone and you're getting an off feeling, if something doesn't feel quite right, trust your gut instinct, call the next company, call all of them on the list before you make your decision. A good guide and outfitter could make or break this hunt for you because you are extremely reliant on them. They are providing all of the area knowledge. They're doing all of the scouting before the season. They're bringing you to the location and finding the animals. This is worth the preparation, time, and effort if you are going on a guided hunt. Okay, so those are my 7 steps for success with finding a guide. Number 1, Google reviews. Number 2, looking on their website. Number 3 is reviewing their social media pages. Number 4, check out YouTube if they're on there. I would not remove them from that. 5, see if they're on any podcasts. 6, referrals. Referrals are worth their weight in gold if you know someone who's used them. And then last but not least, give them a call. Get in contact with them, see what their vibe is, how you feel about them after talking to them on the phone. And remember, trust your gut instincts. If you get an off feeling, this is something that you should trust. Don't do business with someone when something doesn't feel right. Now that I've gone through all 7 steps, I thought you might want to see what is it about Shadow Valley Outfitters that I liked. What did I learn going through this whole process? So for step number 1, I really liked that they showed up on Google. If a page shows up, if someone shows up on those first one, really the first page, it's probably worth checking out. Now you can see sponsored stuff, and admittedly, I go 1 to 3 pages. I will look at those first 3 pages. Then I look at the Google reviews. They have a lot of Google reviews. They are very positive and they engage on those Google reviews. Step number 2 is the website. They have a very professional, modern looking website. It is updated with the recent year's information. Sometimes you look at an outfitter and they'll talk about, you might not even know if they're still in business because the last time they'll have hunts listed is 2021. They might still be in business, they're just not updating their website. But Shadow Valley Outfitters updated their website. Everything looked good. They broke down a clear and concise About Us page. And this was one of the things that really set them apart for me. They became my number 1 just from looking at the website out of the options that I had. One of the things in their About page is that they focus on matching the experience with the guide and the hunter. If you are looking for a certain type of hunt, or if you have a particular experience background or specialty, they try to match up the guide to the hunter to make that experience what it should be. For me, that was huge because I'm a new hunter. I don't want to do guided hunts all of the time. I wanted to learn and maximize my chances because I'm new at this. I don't have a lot of experience, and I wanted to make sure that this tag that I may not draw ever again is being maximized. And I made that clear when I talked to them on the phone, but we'll get to that. All right, step 3, reviewing that social media. Things that I loved about Shadow Valley Outfitters. 1, they post all of the time. They post their successes, they post stories, they post lots of great content. A few other things. They are followed by some very successful and well-known hunters. That's a big plus. Then the thing that I really liked and I did not think about until I was looking at their social media, and that's why I included it in the first steps above, they tag their guides in the posts. They tag their guides' social media if they have them, and you can go and check out their guides. And I really like that. I liked being able to do that extra bit of research, see who the guides are, how they act, what they post, do they hunt in their free time. It's very useful from my perspective to do that type of research and to see huge pluses all around. Double thumbs up for Shadow Valley on that. Now, for step 4, their YouTube. They don't actually have a YouTube page. At least I didn't find one. But there are, I think, 2 videos on YouTube that are within the last couple of years where different hunters used them as a guide and actually filmed their hunts. It was really cool because you got to see what the guides were like, what the experience was like, how they talked, how they actually carried themselves. Also, big thumbs up, big plus. Love to see that kind of content. For number 5, podcasts, I was absolutely blown away. Shadow Valley Outfitters owners, so there's 3 owners, I believe. They are very active on podcasts. Specifically, they go on the J. Scott Outdoors podcast, talking about the draws in Arizona, the hunt success, what hunts are looking like. I went down the rabbit hole. I must have listened to no less than 6 different elk podcasts from them. And I want to say over the course of a few years worth, I went way down the rabbit hole before I decided to contact them. This was amazing because you could really understand how they approach the season, what their strategy is like, and what they're looking for their hunters. Now, for step 6, I did not use referrals. I don't know anyone, so I don't have anything experienced to talk about there. For the final step was the phone call. I filled out their contact form and I got a phone call from Ben Brochu. He's one of the 3 owners of Shadow Valley Outfitters. And talking to him on the phone only solidified the stance that I had on them being my outfitter of choice. When I got to step 2, I said that they had a unique approach to how they want their guide and hunter experience to be. I did not see any other outfitters call that type of experience out on their website. And when I talked to Ben, it was solidified that that is how they do their approach. He was asking me what I was looking for, what my experience was, all of that kind of stuff. And he really took time to get to know me, wanted to contact me, and then set me up for success. He didn't even put pressure on me to sign up with them at that point. He just wanted to get some information and tell about what they could offer me. I loved that approach. And that phone call was the thing that made me really solidify that I was going to choose them. Of course, I had to tell my wife first and explain the fact that I was going to be hurting the family finances for a little bit. But, it was worth it, in my opinion. Don't ask her. She might not say the same thing. Anyway, that phone call solidified it. I went through all of those steps and I felt extremely confident going with Shadow Valley Outfitters for my outfitter. And I didn't even know who my guide was going to be at that point. They had so many guides and so many opportunities. I really did put my full faith and confidence in them. After going through this research, every single sign pointed to them being a legitimate outfitter, caring about the hunters, caring about the animals, caring about the experience, and that is what I was going for. Now, I'm not sure exactly how long this episode is. I'm trying to keep it under 35 minutes, 40 minutes or so. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to do that. But I wanted to know, let me know if you'd like me to do a podcast on the guided hunt experience itself. This entire episode is focused solely on how I researched my guide, but I don't talk about what it was like from this phone call all the way through meeting the guide right before the hunt kicked off. If you have any interest in me recording a podcast like that, please go on Instagram, send me a message, drop a comment on YouTube. Let me know whether or not that is something you'd like to do, and I would be happy to make that podcast episode happen. All right, key takeaways that I'd like you to pull from this podcast. The first being that this is how I found and researched my outfitter and my guide. I do think that these 7 steps for research are repeatable and will work for anyone in any state for any species. I think it is a solid, stable research process. If you use this list and go through the steps, you will find a good guide. I can't promise you, because that's wrong and there's no guarantees with guided hunts, but I have very high confidence that you will get a good guide and have a good hunting experience if you go through all of those steps and you make it through the phone call and you still have a good feeling about the hunt. I hope that you took something away from this. I hope that those steps make sense and that my experience searching for Shadow Valley Outfitters will make your experience easier when you have to do this on your own. Please use those research steps that I provided and trust your instincts. They're not going to steer you wrong. If you are getting a bad feeling about it, it is probably for a reason, and you should go to the next outfitter on your list. As I was just talking about, guides are expensive. Keep that in mind, and if you can plan and budget for it, try to get ahead of the budget. Start thinking about that ahead of time and start setting money aside. If you have a hunt that you know you want to go on, like say you want to go hunt pronghorn in New Mexico and you know that there's better odds of doing that with a guide, and a lot of them are on private land and guides usually do that, factor that into your budgeting plan if you can. It'll make it easier on you and everyone in your family if you can budget for it ahead of time, because they are very expensive, especially for elk. Learned that the hard way. And I think one of the crucial details that I talked about in the beginning, but I'd like you to remember, is that a guide is not a catch-all solution. You still have to be physically in shape. You have to be able to shoot. You have to be able to carry all of your gear, get back where you need to go. You have to execute. Do not be the reason that your hunt fails. All right. If you took the time to listen to this today, thank you so much. I really do hope that you got something from this. Please share this episode if you did like it with someone that you think would benefit from it, and I'll see you next time.